Good afternoon, guys. Man, it's actually a good day out right now. The sun's probably 45 minutes, an hour away from being down. The weather's a lot better than it has been over here in Texas, man. Like the entire week, it's been super dumb hot. And at my job, I'm always outside anyways and having to go get cars from the lot and stuff. So I'm outside in the sun a lot, dude. But like I said, I've been struggling to try to figure out a way to start the channel overall. I'm not really sure where to start with these videos. Some of you guys may actually be coming from one of the YouTube channels that I commented on. There seems to be a lot of traction coming from that, and I think people just don't believe me on all the stuff I have going on right now. See, this right here is one of the items that was in that back corner of the storage unit. This thing is absolutely massive. There's currently only 4 hoops on this thing. There's actually another 2 that we already have built over there by that garage. We just haven't installed them yet because we're missing a couple of these T-fittings that we're going to see if we can get ordered through Ace Hardware or something like that, because they're kind of a weird shape, or kind of a weird size. So that's the first thing. You know, that's the most recent thing that I've done. This is semi-completed because it's all put together. That it was a whole day thing to try to figure it out, and it's together now. This was the trailer that I picked up about a month ago. The thing has already paid its money, and look at this. I jacked up this the jack so bad, man. I put a 4-inch drop on my truck, and my truck's a little bit lifted. It's like 2 inches lifted. It's got some, you know, some off-road tires and stuff. And I thought the 4-inch drop would be more than enough to make up for it. But man, I guess the tongue weight of this thing and the way it's set up and all that stuff just did not line up at all. And I think this is whenever I loaded up a bunch of the trees that we cut at the house onto the trailer. And well, I guess we were going over a train track or something like that, and just barely clipped the bottom of the jack there, and just kind of tossed it back like crazy. And then most recently I had to go pick up those cars from the storage unit, and those things were super heavy, going over bumps and stuff like that. It just completely destroyed it. So I've got to get it replaced. In the meantime, I have it actually sitting on a real jack stand right there, but it's all temporary, you know. Next in line, this right here, that's a 72 C10 pickup. As you guys can tell, this is like the biggest project inside the entire yard, and it's actually a customer car. So this one is he gave it to me. There's not a whole lot of story behind it. Of course, I'm down to make more videos about each project individually as you guys request, but the long story short, this was his grandpa's truck. It was running back in 2010, if I'm correct, and he dropped it off at a shop in 2018 to where they completely brought it down to the frame. They restored the frame itself, which obviously not much to show for it now. And he just wants to get it running down the road, which I told him wasn't that big of a deal based on the pictures that he gave me. And the pictures were, all the body panels were there. There was an engine on the frame and all this other stuff. And I was like, yeah, I can get it running, no problem. And this is what I get. This is like the biggest project out of all the stuff I've got going on. And I don't know, right now we're in a weird little pivot point. He wants to do a 454 build with a turbo 400, and supposedly he just wants to get it running down the road. I've been trying to tell him, just go for an LS swap, it's a lot easier, but he was like, man, the big block is really cool. So hey man, if he pays, I'll take it. So that's first one done. This one here is actually a 01 Honda Civic. Wasn't running at all whenever I got it, and long story short, it runs good now. This used to be my mom's car, and I don't even know. I think now it needs like a water pump, and really that's it. I mean, there's some body damage here. I've been contemplating trying to do a little bit of the body work on it just to make it look better. Sorry, my camera skills suck. So this here is the little bit of the body damage on the backside, and then I believe it's the passenger rear window. Window regulator is bad. This tire always goes flat, so it's going to need a tire or at least a patch or something like that. We went to the junkyard and got a lot of the little accessories for it, but there it is. It's just a solid little car. I think that has an exhaust leak on the manifold itself, which we actually found some headers for it, but I'm not too sure if it's going to work out like that. And next one on the list, this is one of my more recent purchases. It's a 2007 Land Rover Range Rover. This is pretty much how I got it. It was completely squatted down. Air suspension is completely messed up. I don't know if it's blown out, but it's not inflating at all. I had to pay $400 to get a key made for this thing because it didn't have a key. And as you guys can see, I think the hood at some point flew up and hit the windshield, damaged that. Now it's missing this trim. The inside smelled horrible because whenever I got it, all the windows were rolled down, the sunroof was opened up, and it guaranteed it had been sitting there for like a month with all the stuff down. There's definitely some signs of rats being inside of it. It's really, really gross, but I've already spent a couple days detailing it, trying to get the smell out, and it's a lot better. I'll show you guys later on the ozone generator that I'm trying out. It really does seem to get rid of all those smells pretty good. But the mold is just always going to have that smell, so I'll have to make sure I clean it up as best as possible before I try to do the ozone generator again. But right now, it's a good condition. With the key, we got it running. Engine runs great. 230,000 miles. That one over there is 210. Forgot to mention that. This one here, underneath the car cover, this one's actually pretty cool. I mean, we are doing this for the video. It's going to be set in stone for a while, so at least I can remember this. But check this bad boy out. This is a 1972 Ford Pinto. You can see it's got the center line wheels. Paint job looks really good. The stance looks really good. I like how it has the fatter tires in the back, skinnier tires in the front. And it's just a really cool car. This one's actually running and driving. The interior is just about gutted. It's pretty much all gutted. And you see that there, boys? Boys and girls. Holly Terminator X. It's got a TCI shifter. A couple gauges that don't work at all, of course. I've always wanted a car with these things. Finally have it. Open up this thing. Dun, 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 dun. Boom. It's so good. LS swapped 5.3. This is actually the Gen 4/Gen 3 block from the 07 Silverados. Anyone who's like an LS fan will know what I'm talking about there. Check out that fitment. That definitely took some time, but made it fit. Got an aftermarket throttle body on it. There's no intake, unfortunately. I really need to put on some kind of intake or figure out something, because right now it's just kind of cut out in the hood and it barely fits the way it is right now. A couple ICT stuff, but it does run and drive. And technically the next thing on the list, if I wanted to make it perfect, it's still sitting on the original Ford Pinto suspension. So it's definitely really low to the ground. You can run and drive, you know, it does go down the highway just fine, but any kind of bumps at all, you're definitely scraping the ground on the exhaust manifolds. This one here is the 2007 Lexus IS250. Open this door here. Has 185,000 miles. Interior is pretty clean overall. I mean, not literally clean. I got to vacuum it a little bit more, but I mean, it's all here. You know what I mean? And it's a Lexus. You know they're going to go on forever. But it wasn't until I bought the vehicle and pretty much received it that I realized how bad the damage is over here. I took off this fender because I guess they had I'm assuming they hit a guardrail right there on the front bumper and ended up kind of denting up this entire fender here, damaged the entire front and rear doors all the way back to the rear quarter panel. Luckily, I've already replaced the two doors. That was like $200 in a little bit of time. And then not only that, we had a storm come in, and look at this. What kind of luck is that? Now, this is definitely like a PDR spot, you know, that can be dealt with, but that's so annoying. It's like a massive dent, and all because a tree branch fell down. And I mean, that's what I get for having these cars parked here for so long. But I ended up buying this one. I bought the Hyundai Sonata and the Volkswagen Passat, which you guys may or may not know that I recently sold today, actually. All into the same lot. I spent like $5,000 on everything, $4,000 on everything, and just sold the Passat today for $4,500. So super lucky. Next one in line. And here, this is the 2008 Hyundai Sonata. This one actually has 220,000 miles as well, which I will say, I do feel pretty bad about having higher mileage cars. I've definitely tried to stay away from anything 200,000 miles and over, but it's really hard to put down a good deal. This thing was $1,200, you know, AC, runs and drives, no issues. I mean, that's how it was listed on the posting, at least. And I mean, it's just a really good car. My mom's been using it for the past few months. Couple of issues that we had to work out. I think whenever I got it, it only had 3 of these style of rims. I actually ended up finding this rim on Facebook Marketplace for like $100. It was posted there for 42 weeks, like it was waiting on me, and I was like, perfect, it's the exact style I need. And I get it, and it's the wrong lug pattern. It's hard to explain, man, but there was like 6 different serial numbers. It was like, 6 numbers in the serial number, and the last one was like a -A instead of a -B, and like it was just super unlucky, really, really hard to tell. But my solution to it was to literally just find one of these wheel spacers, so it looks a little bit more goofy. And as you guys can tell, it started scraping here whenever we first installed it. I needed to roll the fenders just a little bit to make it clear, and it has a little bit wider stance on this side as opposed to this side. But at this point, it was just supposed to be a get around daily driver car. Wasn't planning on selling it, and here we are now. So that's just a solid car. Okay, honorable mention, this is a little 4-wheeler that my uncle found. I think it was at a garage sale. He paid $100 for it, and I paid him $100 for it. There's no key, there's no chain, but this is a Tao. I think it's a 2015 model, 2015, 2016. Look at that, it's got forward and reverse. Super, super cool. This is a 150cc, if I'm correct. Definitely needs tires, a lot of little issues with it, but I've officially kind of made this one Brianna's project. It's kind of our first thing to kind of get into it and understand, how motors work and how things run, how simple they are. I had her take off all the little fender pieces, and then we got the new project in place, which I'll show you guys here in a second. And now this is on the back burner, of course. So this is where it's been for the past 4 days. And next in line, we have the 2014 Hyundai Equus. Whenever I got it, this thing looked amazing. The bumper was on there at the time, and it sat just like this. And then whenever I saw it in the photos, which I'll try to show somewhere in here, whenever I saw it in the photos, I was like, maybe they just lowered it down to the ground for looks, just to make it look cooler. The rims are really, really expensive. The tires are nice. It does have a little bit of hail damage, but I don't think people matter that much. If they do, then I'll pay the $1,000 to get it fixed. I paid $6,500 for this vehicle. It has 89,000 miles. It did start and run and drive with no issues at all. It runs with no issues, but it starts because it needs a battery. So I have to put a jump box on it to get it to start. And after that, alternator, has it going for the rest of its life. And besides that, it's a really, really cool car. I don't know if you guys know much about these. I would recommend trying to watch a couple videos on it. But for example, this is like definitely meant to be like a limousine style. Like you have your chauffeur driving you around town type of car. These seats actually recline back and forward a little bit. Really, really cool infotainment center on the front. Definitely just it's like the luxury car. And what I didn't know whenever I bought it is it has the Hyundai 5.0, which apparently these things are actually super, super reliable. Like, when do you ever see a V8 instead of a Hyundai? After I saw that, I was like, I gotta have it. I paid $6,500 for it. I really, really can't find them cheaper than like 15 grand. I think more recently, I have seen a couple for like 12 grand, but they're higher mileage and they have other issues and stuff like that. Right now, my biggest issue is obviously suspension. Getting onto this trailer, like, look at that difference, yo. That was a tight fit, and I have ramps that come out, but they're really, really short. They're like 4 feet, maybe 5 feet long. So I had to take off the bumper while I was at the lot and do my best to kind of pick up the fender liners and do whatever I can to get that thing onto the trailer. And it definitely scraped a little bit on the way up, but we got it here. We got it unloaded. Super, super happy about it now. This one here is my, believe it or not, my twin turbo 79 Camaro. As you can see, it's definitely a work in progress. I was getting really, really close to getting it all done. And this is the 454 for the C10 over there. I was getting really close to getting it done, and then I just got put on the back burner, man. Like project after project after customer, things just started piling up, adding up, and this is where it's at right now. Now, I did end up doing the 415 on the firewall. Looks really, really nice. The most recent thing I was working on was trying to do the floor pans, actually. I'm not sure if I can get good enough lighting in here, but yeah, there you go. So we had the floor pans replaced here. This is just a piece of cardboard. Easier said than done, but that's the idea. This here is the LS itself. It's a 5.3. Has the Victor Jr. intake on it. I do have the, what is a Holly Sniper EFI. I wouldn't even call it a carburetor that goes on top. This is one of the turbos I have, 67 millimeter turbo. The other one's inside the storage garage. It already has headers and everything built onto it, which is good. All this piping here, for all you racers out there, this is actually for methanol injection. So I do have the controller itself with all the wiring harness. I've got the everything for this thing, for it to be a really cool car, you know, really cool engine. And then of course 2 weeks later after I did it, I ended up getting myself a welder. This is one of the ones that does MIG, stick, and TIG all inside the same machine. Very cool purchase. This one actually got from Facebook Marketplace for $400. Originally $700 from Harbor Freight. Very cool machine. I love it to death. Ended up getting this this air tank with it. This here is my sandblast cabinet, obviously. I'm sure some of you guys know what this looks like. This one actually used to be my uncle's, and we ended up buying one from a mechanic shop that was going out of business, and this is the one that he had inside the shop. I'm sorry, this is the one my uncle had originally, and my uncle got to keep the nice new one, of course, but I didn't have to pay for it, so it was just given to me, so I'll definitely take it. This here is just pistons, flywheel. Over here we actually have the pistons, which these things are pretty sweet. These are the ones that you get from Summit. They're definitely not forged or anything like that, but they are really nice. They're definitely upgraded. And flywheel, we do have long tube headers for the 454. What else? That's a clutch for the old for the old Muncie that I had, which I still have. It just has a broken ear on it, which is kind of weird. I'm definitely thinking about just selling it as is. Like I said, 454 heads, everything's just in pieces right now. Turbo 400. I'm waiting on the customer to figure out what he wants to do with this, and I'll take it down to the machine shop and get that done for him. This here is actually really interesting. This is one that was given to me by Joe at my shop. This is actually a 4.8. As you guys can see, it's currently a really nice bedside table. But this is a 4.8. As you can see, the oil change maintenance on this thing was absolute trash. But this thing was really nice. I mean, all things considered, everything came apart really nicely. It was just really dirty. So put that inside a hot tank, and maybe that'll clean up pretty nicely. Along with the most recent storage unit purchase, we actually found this thing, not the trash can lid. We found this guy. This is actually a parts washer. Look at this. It's brand spanking new. Like super new. What does this thing say? I don't even know what brand that is. NH? Either way, he got a good deal for it. $2, you know. There's a brush in here. Never been used. Like, this stuff was just there. I don't know what brand this well built is, but if you guys know, maybe it's like the original Harbor Freight or something, because it looks like the same quality stuff. Either way, very cool find. Figured I'd go in and give you guys a quick tour of the trailer. This was the electric winch that was working really good until I completely jacked it up, and now it's ripping from the welds. I mean, either way, in my defense, whoever installed this definitely should have welded it all the way around and just damaged the bottom there. But since they didn't, they messed up this plate and everything, so that's going to be a whole project. I'm definitely just putting that off as long as possible. But really cool electric jack. At least it was really cool. Actually has a battery maintainer built into it. I just drained the battery on that thing like crazy. That's been on for like 2 days guaranteed. I do have the controller and the wireless controller in my truck for the winch. A lot of different chains and stuff to get things locked down in place, not moving at all. It is metal all the way around. It's 18 foot. Upgraded fender wells here. They're like a really thick steel, and upgraded suspension, upgraded the bushings and stuff to handle a lot more weight. Upgraded the tires, upgraded everything on this thing. They have the 12K winch from Harbor Freight there with the with a spinning hook on it. That way that prevents binding and stuff. Couple D-rings welded in place back here. The mat that we could tie down nicely. Locks all the way around, ramps. Very cool purchase. LED lights. And I paid $3,500 for this one, which is definitely a lot more than I ever wanted to spend on the trailer. But to recreate this thing, it would definitely cost like $6 or $7 grand. So I'm still going to back up and say that it's a good deal. Can't find another one like it for that price. At least not in my area, not in the time that I needed it. And for what it's worth, I have used it at least 10 times in the last 2 months. So it's definitely paid for itself, because otherwise I'd be paying tow truck fees, which is like $300 a trip. Let's head on over to the 3-car garage. Technically, it's really a 2-car garage with like a third one being storage. Let me check this out. Some of you big fans know exactly what this is already, but I'm gonna start over here. This is my 1970 Chevy Nova. Originally a 350 car, and of course it's got to be LS swapped. Has a 5.3 inside of it, just kind of a regular one. Really low miles. I think it originally had 58,000 miles whenever we pulled it. Someone wanted to put a 6.0 swap, and this is what we have now. Looks really good. We ended up flashing the ECU with HP tuners and did the brakes and stuff like that. So that's my big question mark right now. Right now I have to wait on a whole new braking system. I don't want to get into that just yet unless you guys ask, but either way, I need new brakes. The rear brakes were locked up completely, but I recently rebuilt the rear end and rebuilt the drum brakes as well, that we can hold up a little bit. Now this is the really ugly 8.2 rear end, really weak in comparison to most other GM rear ends, but I'm hoping it can hold up just long enough so I can have some fun with it. And this is a look at the inside. Missing door panels, missing a back seat, missing a headliner, but the stuff that matters, you got a seat, carpet, and dashboard. And of course none of the gauges work right now, but I do have gauges that I want to install, which if you guys want to know more about the Nova, we can do a whole video on the Nova. No problem at all. I'm happy about that. Bought this one from Joe for $7,500. Needed a lot of work. It still has a lot of rust on the rear quarters. Definitely still a project, but I love this car. This may just be like one of the forever cars that I hold on to for a long time and just keep on upgrading as I go. But super excited. May go with Caltrex on the back. Either way, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Very cool car. So as I said, I did buy a storage unit with 5 cars inside of it, as well as 25 years of just stuff that's been added in there and just thrown in there forever. Everything had an inch thick of layer of dust sitting on top of it, and man, oh man, we had to go through this thing, try to figure out, do we have keys? What kind of mileage do we have? The titles were already dealt with, so that wasn't that big of a deal, but we really needed to know, what do we have inside the storage unit? And this was the first thing we saw. This here is the 1966 Lincoln Continental. Obviously the convertible top. This thing looks amazing. A lot of people's dream cars. Suicide doors, of course, and they open perfectly. Love this car so much. I did go ahead and open up the top here. I wanted to see the condition of all this stuff going on, and it wasn't until I tried to open it that I realized that everything's run through the power steering pump and the power steering fluid that goes throughout the car. Absolutely mind-boggling. As you can see, I mean, they were trying to be really creative here back in the 60s. There's so many hoses and so many wires going around, but if everything works, I'm super lucky. In the meantime, I got to build more pressure from the power steering pump, meaning I have to get it running. And whenever I tried to turn it by hand, I did get it to turn. So I figured, heck, why not? Let's try to just turn the starter, see what happens. And it did crank over for a good long while. And I don't want to break anything. I'm so scared to touch anything in this car. This thing looks amazing, guys. Like, look at this. Since when do you see something like this in this condition? It's absolutely amazing. But took the carburetor off. The second I started cranking it over, like for the 20 seconds that I tried, came over here to check on it, and it was overflowing like crazy. Needles and stuff were definitely stuck, and needed a rebuild. After waiting 3 days, finally got the carb rebuild kit in today. So that's what I'm gonna be doing tonight, is I'm gonna be rebuilding the carburetor. I did already take it apart, probably lost half the pieces. I really try to do my best with my limited space to keep things organized, but that's the top half. Now this thing cleaned up so nicely. You guys can see all the gunk that I just got out of there 3 days ago with carb cleaner. The bottom cleaned up very nicely as well. I think it's gonna run great. I'm actually really confident. I just gotta make sure I put it together, make sure I don't forget any of these check balls or anything that goes in there. But yeah, that's the carb. I'm gonna rebuild it today, put it back in here. Hopefully I can get some footage of it actually starting, and maybe get the top working and see what we have, you know? Drive it around town, do a couple burnouts, you know how it is. Absolutely beautiful car. Now I think we did psych ourselves out. Whenever we saw the odometer, it did say 10,000 miles. We opened up the hood, everything worked perfectly. We opened up the doors, it worked perfectly. We were super stoked. We're like, wow, we have a very low mileage, garage kept car, and then I went to look underneath it, and it definitely has some oil leaks happening there, which I mean, it could just be from sitting. And looked into it even closer. We have the inspection sticker here that actually shows that it's 110,000 miles. But for what it's worth, it still looks great. The paint works amazing. The only rust I really see is here, which is super minimal compared to what I'm used to. So that's fine. Top looks good. There's no body damage at all. Just really cool car. I'm really excited about this one. Whenever we received the car, and then after we got it out of there, we contacted Meekum to see what it was worth. Apparently they have sold 7 of these in the past 6 months, all for around $40,000 to $55,000. So that's really it's really exciting. We did spend $35,000, all fees included, for the storage unit. So if this one can pay us back this and some profit, I'll be happy. And we still have 4 of the cars to go through. And I know I've been walking around it a little bit, but this is the next one on the list. This is the 64 Ford Thunderbird. This one has the 390 engine inside of it. This one seems to have some issues. I don't know. There's a lot going on with it. It was really difficult to turn over by hand. I figured, screw it. Let's just try to use the starter. I did take out the spark plugs. I did try to put some oil down there just to make sure I could free it up a little bit. I did turn it by hand before I did anything else. But even with the starter, it was giving me a lot of issues. And it wasn't until, like, man, literally last night, that I found a video on explaining how the Bendix on the starter needs to be retracted before you install it back. I know whenever I took it out and put it back in, because I wanted to test it out. Like, I'm sorry, I tested it on the bench. This one here, I've been digging into it. I tried turning it by hand. It was really difficult. So I ended up taking out the spark plugs, putting some oil down inside the cylinders, letting it sit overnight, and tried turning it the next day, and it loosened up a lot more, and I was able to get a couple full rotations out of it. So I went ahead and tried to use the starter, and the starter gave me 1 or 2 really good tries, and that was it. After that, I was like, okay, it's probably the starter. Let me see what I have to work with here. And I took the starter out, put it on the bench. Didn't realize that it's actually like an old style Ford tractor style starter. I still don't know what model it is at all, but I do know that it has like an external Bendix that it's like a ratcheting style starter. And I found out last night that a lot of times those things, extend themselves, and you have to retract them. I can show you guys later on what I'm talking about, but you have to retract them. And apparently they have a trick with the wire wheel that I can do to get those things to retract, and then this thing can start, because the idea is the starter is supposed to extend, and it's supposed to spin, extend, and then that, the momentum of it will be able to turn the engine over. I think right now it's fully extended, and since it's trying to turn, it just doesn't have enough torque. It doesn't build up enough speed to get the engine to turn over, because I get 1 or 2 really good turns while the spark plugs are in, and then it just stops. If I take the spark plugs out, it turns over just fine, cranks over, and does everything it needs to do. So I really think that Bendix is my issue there. So that's the next thing on the list here. But this thing looks really good. Quick little walk around. Hopefully I can do some voiceover stuff here with the footage I do have. Those are the ones that go over the wheels. This is the style that the steering wheel actually swings over to the right whenever you get into it. It's kind of funny looking, I'm not gonna lie, but these things, I'm really surprised they aren't more valuable. I think they look really good, but the ones that are in really good condition sell for like 15 grand maybe, which, I mean, it's a lot of money, but I really thought it was gonna be more like 30 or something, but you just don't really see it that much. And especially with this engine being in the condition it's in, this one guaranteed has 130, maybe 230,000 miles on it. I'm really contemplating rebuilding the whole thing. I did stick a borescope down inside the cylinders to try to see any issues. The only real issue I saw is on this back cylinder here. One of the valves do seem to be cracked, which means I have to take it apart, take the heads off, take it down to the machine shop, have them redo everything. That should cost me like $350, maybe $400, and then I can put it all back together and the thing should be running. But it's just, imagine you have rebuilt heads and then you still have stuff that looks like this. It's leaking and you don't know if the compressor is good. There's like a lot of different question marks for a car like this, but I'm willing to try, 100% willing to try. In the meantime, I definitely want to get it started. And even if it sputters, even if it struggles to idle, at least I know what I'm working with. Make sure the bottom end's good before I start throwing heads onto it. So, big question mark. I got to put that starter back together and put it back in here and see what it does. So keep in mind, that's only the stuff that I have going on in the backyard. I do have a couple vehicles sitting at my grandfather's house, and that's the 67 Lincoln Continental Limo, which apparently are super rare. I looked it up. They made like 110 of these things, 110 of those things. The interior was completely gutted. It looks like it had a little bit of rust inside the floor pans, but the storage unit does have all the interior pieces, so I just have to figure it out, put the puzzle back together, and just make it look good, and then hopefully the engine runs, yada yada. But I'm really confident on all these engines, man, except the Thunderbird. That's literally the one that I'm worried about the most, because it has the most amount of miles and it looks the worst out of all of them. But I guarantee all these things were running whenever they were put there 25 years ago, and I have a lot of hope for them. So I have the limo. I actually have a 1977 Ford LTD station wagon, like the Country Squire. I'll try to put a picture of it here. It's got the wood paneling, but on the outside though, it looks really bad. There's a lot of surface rust. There's a lot of the wood paneling's peeling. There's just a lot of really weird issues, but the interior looks amazing, and we got it started yesterday. It started up, it idled on its own. It was super exciting. I didn't try putting it in gear yet. I didn't, the radiator was leaking a little bit, so I'll probably put a little bit of JB Weld or Quick Steel or something like that in the meantime. But it started, so that's one car down. I'm probably gonna have to dig into it, make sure it's perfect, but it's really exciting. And then last, I have a 1971 Lincoln Continental. It's a 2-door hardtop. Hardtop's already peeling a little bit. Interior is all there, but it's missing seats, which are also inside storage as well. That one has a little bit of issues. It's got a little bit of rust forming at the bottom already. That was another toss-up. I haven't even looked at the engine at all. I'm not sure. There's a lot of stuff going on, as you guys can see, and I still have customers coming in. I'm working on the business cards right now, and I'm working with a partner to try to get me more customers, because I think I've noticed that customers are the best paying, easiest turnaround kind of jobs that I can get at the time. But I think the goal, I forgot, I still have the 2015 Kia Forte sitting in the front yard right now. I was on my way to work, and the alternator actually went out, the battery light came on, and all kinds of stuff. So I tested out the alternator and just didn't work out good. And of course they're like $200, but that one's great condition. I did an AC service on it, runs great, ran great this entire time until the alternator gave out, but it looked really old anyways. 91,000 miles, and it's actually one of the first contenders that I have. They can actually be put on Turo and make me some passive income. I mean, semi-passive income, but I think that's the goal. If I can get 5 to 10 cars put on Turo, it makes me, let's say $40 a piece. That's $400 a day. If they're rented out, hopefully they're rented out for a week at a time. It just makes my life easier. Obviously I have to make sure that they're kept up with and stuff like that, but it's a lot to deal with.